yeah, what would be fantastic then would be to hear from you just sort of the ins and outs of how you feel that a national constitution could be created using wisdom councils.
The Wisdom Council process could be started by just your group with resources, and it could mimic really what happened in the U.S. at the original founding. And the original founding moments are the key that holds the whole country together, really. It's not the Constitution so much, it's how it was established that's so important. And then because it was established almost unanimously by the people, and when I say that, of course, I'm not meaning the slaves and the women and the non-property holders and the etc. But the Native Americans is another one that comes to mind. But it essentially was a unity. When they gathered these representatives of states together, they weren't interested. They used parliamentary procedure from the British Parliament, really. But they were not interested in a majority. They wanted to have everybody on board. They wanted everybody to say yes to this. And then eventually they wanted everybody in the country to say yes, everybody in the almost country. And that's really what happened. That's really, really what happened. And then from then on, they lived inside that box, that Constitution, and didn't realize that they had established a way of thinking that wasn't what they had done originally. It was, now they were embedded in a partisan battle. They couldn't get out of it. Even these people that were working together collaboratively, trying to figure out what's best for everybody, reaching unity in the constitutional founding moments, as soon as the Constitution started, they found themselves in a different conversation, and that conversation was a battle, a political battle of special interests. And in fact, there was no place for the public interest. There was no representative of the public interest. There was no way to create the public interest. So what happened is that they set up a conversation that was exclusively this battling process that I call decision-making. Because that's really what decision-making is. It means to cut away. D means away, decision means to cut. So they were in a decision-making process now, instead of what I call a choice-creating process. And in the realm of choice, it's really where we're trying to figure out what's best for everybody, and we're being collaborative in doing that. That conversation was almost outlawed by the constitutional process. It wasn't outlawed in the sense that there was a law against it, but what it did is it imposed judgment as our primary way of thinking. Like voting, for instance, you make an individual judgment, I make one, we add up the numbers, and then we have elected representatives who do the same thing at their level. So it's a system of judgment where we cut away the minority viewpoint, the minority people, the minority. It's really a tyranny of the majority is kind of set up, but it's not just a voting. They, of course, what they have is a balance of power also to try and a rule of law to make this machine work in a more hospitable manner. But the missing ingredient is the conversation that they had in order to form the Constitution.
Right.
And
so you're saying it wasn't able to update itself. It that the initial conversation created something that became a sort of fossilized, a dead thing that couldn't renew itself.
A lot of that, yeah. But it wasn't fun. It isn't bad. This is not a bad thing. It's just that it's missing the fundamental more fundamental conversation where we all step back from what's happening and we look at one another and we talk in this choice creating way to figure out what's best for everybody. How are we doing? Is our system working? Are we happy with it? Do we want to make any changes? What kinds of things would work for you? You know, this listening, creative, win-win conversation was essentially eliminated by the adoption of the constitutional process. And to me, what needs to happen at the national level everywhere, and at the global level, and at the regional level, is that we just need to bring back that whole system, ongoing, choice-creating conversation. That we the people conversation. Now, so turns out that's not very hard to do. With the experiments we've done with the Wisdom Council process, gosh, we only need a few people, we need a few dollars, we need money, and we need, some people with connections, but we don't need anybody's permission. You don't need to go to the House of Commons and get their permission for this, or the Prime Minister or anything. This is something you can just set up, kind of like a reality TV show, and have where people get interested enough to participate, and lo and behold, we can create a legitimate voice of the public interest, which is completely missing in the current system.